right out. Hey, what happened?
Hi everyone. Hi, how are you doing? Welcome. My name is Dean. Time for the show must go. Time for the show, everybody. We have a full day today. Welcome to your Friday, end of the week. These are my favorite days. We kind of mail it in, kind of don't. We're going to mail part of this in. Part of it we won't mail in because we have one of my favorite new podcasts, and the guests that we have today are the hosts of one of my favorite new podcasts to talk to. So we won't mail that part in. We'll mail the other part in. As always, this is brought to you by our friends at Easy Auto Financial. Easy Auto Financial, helping you get into vehicles, any car you want, any financing you want. They don't charge for the financing, and they'll send you to get the car you need. No obligation, no cost. EasyAutoFinancial.ca. Ed's Fine Imports and his Gitch. We wear them, so should you. GITCH. That is the name. The number is 3. That's your promo code. Gitch number 3. Go to edsfineimports.com. He'll send you a free pair when you order 3. You get 4. The 4th for free. edsfineimports.com. His Gitch underwear, boxer briefs, unbelievable. Canadian made as well. And also, big hello and a thank you to our friends at Domination, domination.com, helping people do content one file at a time, saving you hours every single day. Go to dmntn.com. Today, please welcome to the program, everybody, including my favorite new podcast. Sarah and Amy are the hosts. It is called the Gritty Nurse Podcast. We got Bonzi, Ryan, Lachlan, but more importantly, please welcome Sarah and Amy from the Gritty Nurse Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, nice to see you. Good to see you.
Welcome.
Sarah and Amy. You guys are in the same house. Didn't think that would happen, but and I asked when we got on, do you live together? The answer is no, but you live like minutes away from each other. And then we found out, doing a little geography, Ryan Lindley from the Sheeple Shepherd Podcast, also a bit of a brainiac, lives really close to you. So maybe there's something in the water in Binbrook.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Weird. Yeah, like you guys legitimately live behind each other and didn't even know it. Like we were just like, you didn't know he was coming on the cast. You had no idea. But this is where smart people live, apparently, in Binbrook.
We were complaining about our joint troubles with the fireworks in our neighborhood last night, and we were able to pinpoint where they were coming from. The geography was hilarious. It's like, yeah, back
some
there.
sort of celebration last night or
It was
something.
Diwali last night. Yeah.
Diwali, that's what it was. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay. Yeah, we had the same thing in Edmonton. Yeah.
Diwali.
Festival of Lights.
They don't let up on that fireworks, eh?
No,
It's pretty hard over here. It's like at least once a month, I would say. Right?
They go hard with it. Here,
Diwali's once a month.
No, Binbrook fireworks is once a month.
Oh, is
It
it?
doesn't need a special occasion.
we have a similar thing in Alberta. When people get their welfare checks, they go buy fireworks and then light them off. So it's time to round that.
Yeah, nice.
There's a spike of sales at the liquor store, so that bucket of beer is flying out the door, and then they stop at the old fireworks stand and. All right, honey, let's light some fireworks off tonight. Woo! Let the kids stay up late.
The 1st and the 15th of every month, fireworks and booze sales through the roof. Yeah. Anyway, listen, Sarah, that's Greg Bond, by the way, Bonzi, Ryan Lindley, Lachlan Cross. I don't think I introduced everybody well enough. Really thankful everybody's here. I'm really glad you guys are here because if you haven't followed these ladies, they started their own podcast a little while ago. It's called the Gritty Nurse Podcast. And if you go to grittynursepodcast.ca, is that correct? Do I got that right?
GrittyNurse.com.
GrittyNurse.com, my bad. You will see these lovely ladies and every effort they're making to not just enlighten people as to the load that nurses in this country and across the world carry, but especially right now while we're trying to make sense of why people don't really trust nurses or modern science or doctors. And they have a magnificent podcast where they talk about social justice, women's health and rights, mental health, health equity, COVID, and the like. So give me a little bit of background before we get started. Like, you guys not only live in the same neighborhood, work together on this, you're both nurses. And how did you guys go, like, from, the daily duties of a nurse to, like, you know what, we need to talk to people. We got to ask people questions. We need to inform people. What was the impetus for that?
you want to start, Sarah?
Okay, so the backstory is Amy and I have been work wives in 2 different jobs in 2 different organizations. And through these experiences, we'd experienced bullying, we'd experienced racism, and it really started to make us wonder, like, what is going on with the profession? And long story short, we ended up leaving those jobs, and we tried to go back to the hospital leadership and say, hey, you need to do something about what we've gone through. And we found that we were just talking to a brick wall. So one day Amy came to me and said, hey, do you want to start a podcast? And I was like, sure, I don't listen to podcasts, but let's go for it because I'm all about trying new things. And so for a long time, we were kind of talking into the wind. Like, we didn't think anybody was listening. We kind of just did our own thing, which is to share our experiences and amplify the voices of others. Mm-hmm. And slowly we started to get more experience and more attention. And we started doing media this year. And that kind of has started, this, what am I trying to say? Like the snowball effect, where more and more people are joining in, they agree with our message, and they really want to support the message of what we're trying to show, that nurses are capable of so much more than people realize, and that we really are the backbone of healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel that there's just also, a lot of silencing in nursing. A lot of times that, if you see on the media, they might ask a physician or they might ask a physician about something related to nursing. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you just ask a nurse? There's lots of nurses, but there's also that fear in speaking up and speaking to the media. And we wanted to change that. And we wanted to start a movement where other nurses feel comfortable in having those conversations, because if we don't talk about our problems, we can't fix them.
Oh, God, I love hearing that. I just assumed that nurses and doctors weren't allowed to do this. Like when I found out you guys had your own podcast a couple months ago, and Dr. Vivian Stamatopoulos, a buddy of mine, she put me onto it, and I was like, are they allowed to do these podcasts? And she's like, I don't know. They're doing them. Is that a weird myth? Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's a myth. I'd say that because we're not supposed to talk on behalf of our organization. And that's something that Sarah and I don't do. So we talk about our personal experiences. We talk about things that happen within our profession. We always, if we're telling a story or someone's sharing a story with us, we make sure that we don't use patient-specific information. I think there's certain guidelines that we just follow. And at the end of the day, we make sure that whatever we're telling, we're telling it with our truth and our perspective. And we tell it with grit. We just have to tell the truth. Like we can't keep the status quo and see the fact that, patients are being harmed, or that, the healthcare system needs changing, and not do anything about it. Cause that's the whole point of being a nurse. We're supposed to be health advocates.
Right. What do you think the number one issue is right now? If you could just take a step outside of COVID, what's the number one thing that impedes your ability to do your job?
In healthcare, just in general?
Yeah.
For nurses?
Bureaucracy. There's a lot of bureaucracy. That's what I'd say. I think that right now nursing has, when we talk about, I guess, the nursing shortage, people are like, oh, this is something that's new. No, it's not. COVID has made more things apparent, but we've always struggled with the nursing shortage. We've been nurses for over 10 years, and we could have nurses that are 30 plus years that'll tell you that they've always worked short. We've always worked with and have been expected to do more with less. And that is a huge problem in our healthcare system, that, people don't really truly understand what it's like to be a nurse and have to deal with it. And now they get a small glimpse of, through the pandemic, how difficult it has been. But the nursing shortage has been something that's been longstanding.
So you wouldn't agree with what Lachlan would normally say, and that is, like you say, it's good to talk about it and get it out. Lachlan says, lock yourself in the basement and drink away the problems. That's not the solution then for what's going on, or?
Well, I think that, we've been advocating for, and I think what Amy's saying is that these problems have been issues for years, but it's only for the first time now that it's gone into mainstream media. And so we have that opportunity to talk about the issues. I think another one issue is government funding. So there are bottlenecks for getting into nursing school. I read an article recently about someone who had a 95% average who was turned away from a nursing program. We have internationally trained nurses who are being recruited as PSWs. I think another major issue is workload.
What's a PSW?
Personal support
PSW
worker.
Is a personal support worker. So
Okay,
someone who, they do a lot of healthcare work, but they're not regulated professions as nurses. And so it's just this bottleneck effect where we're not utilizing the nurses that we have. And there's so much bureaucracy with getting licensed as a nurse in Ontario when you've been trained in another country. So we're talking about multiple different issues. I feel that the lack of funding is a huge issue. You guys might have heard of Bill 124, which actually caps the wages of nurses for the next 3 years at less than 1%, so less than the cost of living. And when we're talking about how we feel that nurses are heroes, we're not paying them as such. We're not treating them as heroes. We're giving them this title, but expecting them to keep doing more with less.
Right.
Well, you should learn how to play basketball, guys. Then you'd make a ton of money.
We're also not attracting
I don't know if you've met me, but
we're not tall enough.
No.
Okay, all right.
Oh, you're not athletes, are you? Yeah, no, that's.
I wouldn't say that. Actually, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so I am a little bit of an athlete that way, but just not basketball.
Oh, you're an ass kicker.
That's an athlete.
Yes, I
So,
poker.
One of the big problems that you brought up there with that Bill 124 is not only retaining nurses but also attracting new talent to become nurses. There's no, it's not something that somebody's going to look from the outside and think, wow, I really want to do this job. Watching these nurses just get railroaded over and over and over again, especially now that it's been magnified with the pandemic.
Yeah,
have you guys?
Right?
Sorry, have you guys had any encounters with any of the protests that we've seen sporadically across the country? For some reason, these idiots think that it's a good idea to protest outside of hospitals. Have you had any interaction in that regard, guys?
No specific interactions. Like we've had people kind of say stuff to us on Twitter. I just had my first interaction with Chris Guy, so I'm like, haha, this is great.
Oh, do tell, because
awesome.
Because I think we're responsible for the sewering of that man's life. So fill us in. I would love to know.
Yeah, essentially, it was actually post between Dr. Vivian Stamatopoulos and yourself.
Yes,
where we were just kind of, telling the truth, telling it how it is. And I think someone got a little bit butthurt because I said that, he knows that the garbage bags that he's selling his merch out of is garbage. And then he responded to me, and I felt empowered because I was just like, all right, for you. Someone's listening.
Oh, dude, and you know what? He only responds. Yeah, for sure. And he only responds to things that really bug him. So you must have really bugged him, like really pissed him off. But to Lachlan's point, like, I'm listening to you kind of surface cover being racially marginalized as a nurse, being bullied as a nurse, trying to find your way as a nurse. You start a podcast to talk about things, not just to help yourself, but to help others. And fast forward to 2 years ago when this whole thing started to come down, and then fast forward through the pandemic, have you ever felt in your profession less appreciated by the people that you're serving and the people that you work for?
This has been like an eye-opening experience, really. And I think this is why Sarah and I continue to do the stuff that we're doing, because, we truly understand that people don't know what it's like to be a nurse. Like, they have no idea. I think they have some preconceived notions, and a lot of them are really false. Like, we see all these types of narratives where I think Sarah was mentioning, you see like the sexy nurse or the dumb nurse, or, for example, I was watching a show last night where they had nurses still in like white gowns and caps, and it was a show and like that was made just this year. It's like, that's not even how a nurse dresses. So we're trying to kind of address this out of touchness with nursing. And it's just been really hard seeing how devastating the last 2 years have been. And that, for example, like you were saying, that there are still people going out on the streets and protesting outside of a hospital to say that what we're doing, what people are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into is fake and is not the right narrative. And I think it just shows nurses that I guess we really wonder if people do care.
Well, and we do, but how do you, like, what do you say when you're approached or you're yelled at or you see it as a nurse? and you just walk out of a 10-hour shift trying to save the lives of ungrateful people who think this isn't happening. We're now incredibly thankful for modern medicine at the hospital. But like when you walk out and someone says what's happening and there isn't happening, pardon the language, but how the fuck do you guys go, you know what? I'm going to just allow you to be mentally ill, and I'm just going to make my way home, and I'm going to have myself a tea, and I'm going to forget that this happened, when it happens every single day. Like, how do you stay motivated to do the most selfless job I think there is to do on this planet? Like, how do you do it?
Well, I think like for us as nurses, right, we have to really go back and think about why we became nurses. Most of us did it because we wanted to help others, but not at the expense of our own physical and mental health. And just to address your comment about walking through that crowd and, they're anti-vaxxers, they might be spitting on you and you're just trying to get to work to do your job. Some of these anti-vaxxers might be the same people that you end up caring for because they're unvaccinated and they get sick. And then it's a real moral and ethical issue because the people that you're fighting against could be the very people that you have to take care of. And really, at the end of the day, I don't think there's a simple solution for that. We are totally out of energy. At the end of a 12-hour shift, you really have the capacity to argue with this person who is not going to see your point of view. But, they're there and you can't unsee them and you can't unhear what they're saying.
Do you come across this when you're treating people? Like, have you come across like, and I've always been fascinated. I've never talked to a nurse where she's been able to give me like, oh yeah, I've dealt with those people. But have you had to treat people who still don't think it's real? Like, have you had people in the hospital where you're like, hey, dude, this is pretty real, and you kind of have it? Like, have you seen that live?
See, I haven't had to deal with that personally. We've had nurses that we've spoken to that have actually been on our show. We spoke to an American nurse who actually has received a lot of press. I think she was one of the first nurses to change a patient's mind in the US when it came to COVID-19. And I think the story that she told was a true one. People are on ventilators knowing that they have, we know that they have COVID-19, but they're still denying it up until the point of, sometimes their last breath. And it's, from her experience, it's just entirely frustrating because at the end of the day, we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that we save that person's life, regardless of whether they believe or not. It's just, it's heartbreaking. And, we do take it home sometimes, right? We take it home, whether it's, we cry in a closet or, unfortunately you yell at one of your kids and you're like, wow, I'm under way too much pressure and stress. And it's that fact that we see that, how terribly it's affecting other people, but some people just don't really fundamentally get it.
What does it do to you? Sorry, go ahead, Law.
Go, Ryan.
What does it do to you, like emotionally and spiritually and mentally, when at 1 minute you see the Premier of Ontario on TV calling you heroes and praising you for working your back off, as he likes to say, and then on the other hand, not mandating vaccinations for hospital staff? What does that say to you when it comes to feeling support from your government?
Yeah, I think that. So yesterday, for example, I had the opportunity to talk to CBC as it happens about the vaccine mandates. And I had to call a spade and say it was bullshit. It's nurses are getting.
You swore on national television? Did you legitimately swear? Because you are already my heroes, but that's
that just upped it.
It's kind of funny because like we have to just say what's on our mind, and we have to be truth tellers. We have to say we have to call a spade. And at this point, 18 months into it, I think he drew a line in the sand where he was saying that he wants to protect healthcare workers. He wants to protect patients and families, and was talking about mandating vaccines, and then came out and did a full 180 and said no, that they weren't going to do this anymore. And if we look at the overwhelming majority, I think most organizations have up to 90%, in some places higher, of just overall staff vaccination. This is something that people want. People want their loved ones, people who are ill, to be looked after by people who are vaccinated. And it's not even just the fact that they're vaccinated, it's also the principle behind the thing as well. Knowing that, you're going to put yourself out there, put that risk out to make sure that you're protecting people who are most vulnerable. So people in long-term care, people who come to access care in the hospital, they're not coming there for, it's not a hotel. They're coming to get care. And our sole responsibility as healthcare professionals should be to make sure that patients and families get the best care, best outcomes. And if we can mitigate that by having specifically hospitals and nursing and healthcare workers be mandated to take a vaccine, I don't think we're asking too much. And this is not, it's been so highly politicized. This is not new. Nurses have been asked to take vaccines throughout our entire career.
It's just an update, right? Like it's an update or professional development. It's the same thing.
Exactly. Like when we went into nursing school, it was mandatory that we had our vaccinations up to date. We had to, have our TB skin test, for example. That was mandatory. And this is no different. It's just a different vaccine because of what's happening with COVID. So this is not a new principle by any means, but people are making it into an issue that it's a choice. It's about personal freedom. But your responsibility as a nurse is to protect those that are the most vulnerable. So just think about yourselves or your loved ones. Would you want to be in the hospital knowing that your nurse wasn't vaccinated and she could possibly have COVID at any moment? Like how bad?
I wouldn't want a caregiver caring for me that didn't believe in evidence-based science.
Right, exactly. That's the number one principle right there, right?
Do you guys know anybody in the profession that is anti-vax? You don't have to say their name, but
it would help.
All accounts, it sounds like there's thousands of nurses, or like I don't know why.
I don't think there's as many as you think. I think so. One of the things that people had asked us before is like, there's this group out there that's protesting, saying that they're nurses. And at the end of the day, what I'd like to say is they are not, in fact, nurses. They still are licensed as nurses, but they are no longer able to practice or can practice as a nurse. They might have the ability to get a job, but I don't know who might hire them, because I believe some of these nurses actually went out in January to overthrow the government in the United States for that. These aren't people that you want to be, pulling up your IV insulin medications and giving it to you. So I wouldn't consider them in my books nursing. And I think the majority of nurses would feel the exact same way as myself and Sarah.
But have you talked to some that you've worked with, or like you go to the nursing station and everybody starts talking and it's like water cooler for nursing station. What are you doing tonight? Oh, I'm going to the movies. So what are you doing tonight? Well, I'm quitting my job because I won't get vaccinated. Have you had those conversations with those people?
It's actually kind of funny. I think that nurses that are anti-vax they're one extreme or the other. So the number one is that they're really loud and really vocal, such as the nurses we just talked about who organize these protests. And then there are the ones that don't say anything, and you have no idea that they haven't been vaccinated. And then they say something and you're like, what? Like, who are you even? Like, I have a friend of mine who I've known for over 10 years, and she made a really slight comment that like she wanted to apply for a job. And she's like, do you think they're going to require me to be vaccinated? And I was like, oh my God, who are you right now? So there's those people that are kind of like flying under the radar that don't say anything, and you don't really know until you ask them, until you have that conversation.
It's revealing, right? Sorry, it's revealing. Like I've got friends too, like recently, who I'm like, hey, we're going to this thing, and he's like, oh, I can't go to that thing with you because it's vaccine mandate. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking? Hold it, dude. Hold it. What is your name again? And do I know you? I've known you for 20 years, and you're just telling me this right now. And it was funny because it was like, I've got a couple of friends that are like that have done the fucking full Aaron Rodgers. Like, it's like, yeah, oh yeah. And they're following along with the conversation. You'll be out for dinner and talking with these guys, and they're like, oh yeah, it's terrible, Vax. It's terrible out there. Yeah, oh yeah, you got to take care. And then you go, hey, you golfing? Oh, I can't because I'm not vaccinated. I'm like,
well, yeah, like actually, at the very beginning, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble for this. At the very beginning.
Have I told you I love you yet? Have I told you I love you? Go ahead.
I'm gonna take one down, but like my father-in-law is super, super anti-vax, like hardcore.
We all have family members. Yeah.
It's so difficult because, I think we have that notion. It's like, oh, he's a really nice guy. He's a really nice guy who still believes that Trump should be the president. That also believes that, ivermectin is working, and that he calls it the plandemic, and the convid, and it's just it's so exhausting, right? And I think this is one of the things that Sarah and I say. There's two types of people that we can talk about the COVID-19 pandemic too. So there's people that are sitting on the fence that are genuinely concerned and really don't, maybe, science isn't their background, or they just generally don't know, and they need to have more information. We're happy to continue having those conversations, and we would never force anybody to do anything, but we do want to encourage people to have conversations and reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. I don't know if this is the right thing. And then we could point them in the right direction in terms of evidence, and then let them make that informed decision. But then there's the other side of the house where it doesn't matter what you say. Rebel media is their only form of news, and it's not going to change their mind. So my father-in-law hasn't spoken to me in the past 18 months, but I know he sees my face on TV.
Bummer.
Okay. Good.
Bummer. I used to say the same thing.
Count
I would
your
get in an
blessings.
argument with my ex-wife's mother, and she'd be like, my mom doesn't want you around for Thanksgiving. You got to stay here this weekend. I'm like, oh, that's a crying shame. Yeah.
Awful. I
Lies
hate
right.
that bad news. Yeah.
Yeah.
My in-laws, they honestly believe, so they're heavy smokers, by the way. They honestly believe that non-smokers are the ones dying of COVID. And I'm like, come again? And I was like, can you literally explain that to me? So my grandmother passed away from COVID in the first wave. She was, she was in long-term care. She was over 100 actually. And so they said to me, wasn't your grandma a smoker? And I'm like, yeah, until she was 50, and then she stopped. And they're like, see right there, non-smoker, died of COVID. I had to take a walk. I'm like, I just need some air right now. You guys, do your thing, but I gotta get some air.
It is crazy, right? What people believe. We've had numerous conversations. The one thing that I can't wrap my head around is there's this sort of perception that this vaccine is evil, that they're giving it out against, it's not tested properly, that COVID's it's being overblown, it's not really real, it's just a flu. Yet there's people eating ivermectin. Why are you eating ivermectin?
Yeah,
it's made by this, the fourth largest Merck, the fourth largest pharmaceutical company in the world. And this is a dumb guy telling you this. I don't even know why I should know that, but I do. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to take something that isn't proven, that the company that makes it even says, please don't take this, because we don't have any studies to show that it has any impact on COVID. Yet they'll do that, but they'll ignore the vaccine. We were joking today about this pill that Merck has come out with that's being approved in the UK now. And it basically, if you get COVID, you take it, it will reduce the symptoms. And I'm like, well, they're making a huge mistake. They actually had it studied, and they've got scientific proof that it might work. The people they need to take this damn pill aren't going to take it because their pastor didn't tell them to do it.
It's funny because it's the pill. They were just talking about it today. The studies are coming out of the UK today that it has a 50% efficacy rate, is the Merck developed pill. Pfizer's also announced putting theirs into testing phase and trials today at 90% efficacy for an antiviral pill. So this is where it's going to be really funny. What if we put that in a paste form and put a picture of a horsey on it? Will you fucking take it then, you fucking idiots?
Yeah.
If that's what it takes, that's what we'll do to get out of this.
Yeah.
It's crazy, because I think at the end of the day, there's been so many different narratives that have been spun, and we call it the disinfodemic, or the health misinformation of the pandemic, and it's actually been one of the most challenging things to deal with, because there's so much nonsense, but then it's spun by really powerful people like Joe Rogan. How many guys sit there and watch Joe Rogan and his podcast and go, I listen to everything that he says. And then, at the end of the day, they're taking their science information from Joe Rogan. It's
prefer mine from Nicki Minaj, if we're being honest.
Me too, right?
Yeah. I was worried for my nuts. I was worried for my nuts after Nicki's
saw what happened
post.
to Bonzi.
Yeah, well, Bonzi grew an extra one. Yeah.
What was the resolution of that? Did she actually?
I think she just
Changed her
shut
mind?
up. Like I
She
think
shut up?
they just.
She just
There was a
she
huge
deleted the
disconnect.
tweet.
It was her
Oh.
cousin's
quick.
best friend's brother's
Nuts.
uncle's sister's brother.
And they
Like
shut
it was
down.
one of those.
They shut down the whole country to figure out what was wrong with this guy's nuts for like 2 days. And then
And
this
the
guy
guy
comes
didn't
out and
exist.
he's like, listen, I got to tell you, we checked his nuts. No big deal. Like, it's making it up.
Everything's fine. Didn't
And
it?
they couldn't
Yeah.
even find the guy. He didn't exist.
Yeah.
That
You
was
think we can get
that's
the same
problem.
for Gonzi?
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you ladies something real quick. Premier's daughter, Krista Ford, you familiar with her? Yeah. Oh, she's laughing already. That Amy, I love her.
We see it all. We see it all.
So, I don't know. I could be wrong. You can side with me, which will help my narrative greatly because you're both professional nurses and lodestars in the health advocacy community. But when you see a tweet like this that she puts out, not a tweet, it's an Instagram post, where she puts this out about 1,300 LAPD members suspended yesterday before the 48-hour notice to comply with their shots was given up. They all turned in their badges. Her husband actually is a cop, and he's going to lose his job. So you know where this is coming from. You know the impetus for this, where she says, she goes on about how it's a tyrannical thing that they're making people get this vaccine. Not just tyrannical, but then she points it on Big Pharma, and she says, like all the new Pradaxa blood thinners for kids approved by the FDA in June 2021, Big Pharma doesn't look for cures. They look for fund medication and other lifelong customers. Like these, when the premier of the province that is in mandating that you ladies save the lives of idiots and other people who are immunocompromised and have suffered through this, and then you see the daughter who clearly doesn't believe in anything that you guys are doing. Does it bother you?
I think it bothers us, but we're not overly surprised by it. And the thing about Big Pharma is, I have said this on the podcast, it's sad to say that you're worth more to them alive than dead. So if you get COVID and you die, it's actually not helping them either, because you're not going to be on all the medications you might be for years, right? So that logic doesn't really make sense to me. It really doesn't. It's very actually kind of flawed.
And
Their
we're
logic,
and
their
we're
logic
one
doesn't go far at all, ever. It never passes. They're very, like I say, they're very myopic, and they're very tunnel visioned, and they just leave it. They abandon one and just move to the next. They did, like, it's like they steal a car, it runs out of gas, then they just go steal another car.
Yeah.
And that's their theories. Like, their theories are the cars, and that's the way it works with them. And it's the same with government. And if the government wants us dead, it's a mass genocide. Well, then who pays taxes? Nobody pays taxes when they're dead. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy,
Yeah,
you were
I
gonna say
think-
something?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just, I personally think that Doug Ford actually should come out and say something. I think that this is actually a huge problem. People are seeing this all over Twitter, all over her Instagram, and people are just like, well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? So I think Doug Ford should come out and say something. If he doesn't agree with what his daughter's saying, he should say something about it. And the fact that he said nothing speaks volumes, right? I think the fact that he hasn't said a word is
I
like,
keep saying that.
Okay.
I keep
think he likes it.
asking. I keep asking what the motivation is, and these guys keep trying to convince me that he's worried about those voters. And I'm like,
It's-
that
He's gonna get
voting, that
PCs over to
segment
him.
of the voting public can't be that big that it would sway a decision in the next election. But maybe maybe I'm wrong. Like,
what happens though, Locke? If you look around the world, this misinformation is a problem around the world. What politician have you seen that is actively speaking out against misinformation worldwide? Name one.
Joe Biden.
Nobody will isolate a sector of voters. Nobody will.
Yeah.
A politician will not fucking do it ever.
Yeah, and that's
Ever,
got to
ever,
be
ever.
it, right? Like, he's like 2 weeks ago, Randy Hillier. You guys are familiar with that weapon. Randy Hillier was saying worse. It's the same, not worse, the exact same shit she was saying. Krista Hayes, which is Doug Ford's daughter. They censured him, and then Doug Ford was like, "I'm pretty sure he should go to a mental institution at this point." While his daughter is feeding a steady stream of the same shit on her Instagram feed, and he's not saying a word, not a word. And if I'm a nurse, I'm like, hold it, she's killing people, right? She's killing people with it. She's like actively trying to make others sick with that kind of stuff because people will take what she says seriously, despite the fact her only medical training is being a lingerie football player.
Yeah, it's a very, very dangerous rhetoric when you're spreading that type of health misinformation, because you can lead to people getting sick and dying from COVID. Like, I think I just read an article today. I think it was a BC very prolific anti-vaxxer has died. They don't know what. They said the coroner has to determine, but essentially, I think 3 days before his last post. Oh dear, that's
there he is. His name's Mac. His name's Mac Prehar. And let me just play the video to add an addendum to your point, so it makes it a real zinger. This is the video of Mac a few days before he passed away, joking around, calling this whole thing COVID. Watch this.
So that's quite bizarre that I'm getting these attacks. Like, so many people getting sick. It is definitely not COVID, because COVID doesn't exist, so I'm not even gonna fucking go there. A lot of people are like, yeah, COVID. No, I got fucking aches, really sore throat, a lot of phlegm, hot, I'm like feeling cold, so I'm like layered up, extra layers, and a few other things, a few other so-called COVID symptoms, but I haven't been sick in like so long, and it just hit me. So I'm like, what's going on here? What happened to my immune system? How did this manifest? I didn't really change anything.
So he was found dead yesterday afternoon, and that was one of the last posts that he did. Sad anytime someone loses their life. I truly do believe that. Are these a little less sad? Kinda like.
It's so. I think every time we see something like that, it's gut wrenching, because there's been 18 months of evidence of this being something that's very serious and that people need to take seriously, and it's just the fact that we see people still denying it up until they die. Like, I am so concerned for larger things like COVID. Like, this is a big deal, but what about like climate change? Like, what about other things? Like, I think that this is the fact that something like this has to happen. I think it's such a waste. It's such a waste of someone's life, that they can take something like this and spread misinformation and cause other people their lives. Essentially, it cost him health misinformation, cost him his life. I wouldn't even say COVID cost him his life. It was health misinformation at this point.
I think one of the bigger
Sorry, Locke, just 1 second. Sarah was going to add something to that. Go ahead.
I'm just thinking about all the thousands and millions of people that he's influenced. Like, this is not just him. We don't even know how many other people this has affected with his misinformation. And I just feel like this is, for some people, it might be just like distrust of authority. Like, let's stick it to the man. But at the end of the day, you're not hurting anyone but yourself and the people that you care for.
Sorry,
well, and that actually was exactly what I was going to say. The thing that I've been frustrated with isn't so much the extreme side of it. You're always going to have that, and a lot of us that know somebody that is anti-vax or anti-mask or whatever, they had a foot in a number of conspiracy theories before this even happened, right. And this was just the next one in a long line of things that they believe in, and they're the ones at the dinner party trying to tell you about chemtrails and things like that. So this was just a natural progression. The concern I
and Bitcoin. Don't forget Bitcoin.
Oh, Bitcoin's a huge one.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing that really that's been sort of eating away at me lately, and it's based on conversations that I have on a fairly regular basis about people that are vaxxed, that believe that they needed to do something to protect themselves, but they still think that this has all been overblown, and that the media is making this bigger than it is, and And that if we just stopped talking about, I was on the phone with my father, who is not a dumb man, who knows I'm in the media, and said if the media just stopped talking about it, it would go away. And I'm like, I'm in the media. And I'm like, Dad, this is a worldwide pandemic. The entire world shut down. And I'm supposed to go into work tomorrow and just talk about something other than COVID? It's not going to happen. We're going to talk about it. Why is it that you're talking about it every day with all of your friends, and yet the media is the problem? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't that rationale is driving me crazy, because that is a strong underlying current in a lot of conversations I have and that I'm involved in. And I'm looking around going, I'm in the media. You're basically telling me that my show is the problem, and I didn't create this. It's something we're all dealing with. The whole world shut down, so I'm not supposed to talk about it. Talk about Grey's Anatomy instead. Like, holy shit!
It just begs the question as to kind of like, well, what is, if this is a whole government conspiracy? Like, what are they gaining? The economy's gone to hell. Like, I mean, the cost of living, there's all these negative effects to COVID-19 being here. So what are we gaining from trying? Like, I always
can't answer that question.
I asked my father-in-law, I'm like, what are we gaining from doing all of this? I'm like, everything is gone to hell. Like, what exactly are we benefiting from? The only people I'm seeing benefiting from this are anti-vaxxers. Like, they're the ones getting, like, Chris Guys is still out there trying to sell his t-shirts and his crypto and Bitcoin stuff. Or like, we've even had people say like, hey, we can sell you fake certificates for $200 so you can have a fake medical certificate. There are people that are benefiting off of the pandemic, off of the backs of people who mistrust the system, and they're using them. I always have said, like, I haven't seen a vaccinated person attack another unvaccinated person, swear, yell, spit at. I don't know where this behavior is coming from, but we've said it time and time again. It's very cult-like. It's very, very extremist.
Cult-like is such a great word. Right? A great phrase, a great way to put it, because it doesn't make any congruent sense. Like, you can't, if you have a mind that works and you go, okay, A goes to B goes to C, and we've got conditional probability to be able to say that A goes to B goes to C, you should be able to surmise that you probably should get vaccinated, right? Like, you should be, but it's not even that. Like, I've got friends that aren't vaccinated, but they don't run around telling people not to get vaccinated. So my problem in Coral isn't with them. Right. The content that we do here is heavily weighted to the greater good. And I think that what you're talking about is kind of a touch point there. Right. It's like, okay, listen, if you want to know who's right in this equation, ask yourself the one question: who's advocating for the health of others? Right. Who's advocating for the greater good here? It ain't people that are telling you what you're seeing and reading and watching. In terms of watching people get vaccinated and society get better, it ain't them, right? It's not those people, because they're telling people not to do it, even though we are getting better. And I find that fascinating. It's like it's the old fable. And if I don't know if you guys read Aesop's, the old Aesop, talking about making the best of your situation for everybody involved. They're trying to make their situation everybody else's situation so we can be worse off with them and they have company. That's how it feels.
That's a key point, and that comes up quite a bit in conversations I've had recently with people trying to explain this. There is the cult, the organization, the community thing to this. Like-minded people, they now have a group. Right. And people all feel like everyone wants to be a part of something. Community. And so I think there's a bit of that going on here too. Right.
For sure.
Get under the same tent.
Ladies. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's groupthink, and it's dangerous. It always has been dangerous. Yeah. And it gets tied to politics. And Dean said something a few times now, and it's so good.
Probably.
And I've never thought of it this way, but it's changed the way I think about things and how they operate. And they think it's happening to them specifically.
Right.
It's not just happening to everybody. Like, it's not a thing that's just occurring and we're all just living with it. They think they've been targeted, and this is happening to them. So they're on the defensive.
And they want to make us think that we're being targeted too, because that's
you get a lot of why me from that group.
Yeah.
Why
And
me? What did I do? I didn't do anything. I'm a good Canadian. I've been here 8 generations. Remember that guy, the crying St. Albert karaoke guy?
Yeah, the karaoke guy. He wasn't allowed to.
It was all about him. COVID was all about him.
All about him.
The world revolved around him. Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with his 75-year-old neighbor that's got COPD. It's got nothing to do with the other people that have comorbidities that would kill them, even if vaccinated and they contracted COVID. It's them and them alone, and their freedoms and and everything else. So it's a cult. You're right. And it's cult, and it's groupthink. And what happens is that groupthink becomes automatic and robotic to the point where they can't, when challenged in it, like a civil debate, not even a debate, just a question, civil question, they can't answer it. It's like staring at a wall, and then they get offensive again. They think, "Oh my God, this person's attacking me. I'm going to become belligerent and aggressive." And it's we have a podcast coming out about it. It's going to be good.
Yeah, you can't even pull them to the center at all, right? Like if the conversation is only surrounded around right media or even left, right? Because I think you can go both sides, right? And if you can't pull people to say, okay, maybe you shouldn't listen to just that stream, or you listen to the other side of the argument as well. And if they are only telling you one side, that means like they've tuned out. They're not.
So can I ask you a question, ladies? How do you think the media, like when you look at the way, because listen, there's gaslighting on the opposite side of this too, right? How, as nurses, when you get up in the morning, how do you think media has done in this country, or more importantly in this area that we live in, with communicating common sense, like-minded, not gaslighting? Like when you see, what would your critique of media be on both sides? I guess that would be the question.
It's really hard to find a media source that is really center. I think that's the problem, right? So it's one or the other. And people, when they tune into a certain news channel, they may not be aware that they're very right-wing or very left-wing. So it's really just about going to credible sources of information. And that's what we always try to advocate for, is evidence-based, science-based. That's what we stand for.
Like
that's
TikTok.
what the profession stands for. I mean, there are valid TikTokers
there are some good
out there
TikTokers,
too.
yeah.
It's fun to watch videos. And I think people
Facebook.
they need and I have to say Twitter does a good job at filtering out a lot of trolls, at least for us.
Yeah.
So I think, they're onto something, but it is hard because sometimes you think you're following a credible source and then they say something that's anti-vax or anti-mask. So one thing I will say about the media is that we really want them to continue to reach out to nurses. So we don't want them to only reach out to us when things are bad.
Right.
Like at the height of the first wave, the second wave, the third wave, we were getting media requests nonstop. But I hope that if and when COVID gets better, that people don't forget about nurses and what we went through and all of the things that we continue to advocate for. Climate change is one of them.
Yeah, I think the media can be a little bit of a double-edged sword. I know we've seen things that, of a story that might not have the full pieces to it, or, for example, I think I saw a media story where they were talking about COVID, but they were in like a sim lab, and then essentially the person who was on the table was like a sim mannequin. And then it just breeds more distrust in people who are already very fearful of what's happening, right? Mm-hmm. So I think they just need to be very cautious. And again, I think people who are listening, you can't just get your information, like Sarah said, from the media. You need to go to other credible sources. The media is going to spin things left, right. You got to really, I know I hate saying this, you got to do your own research, or at least reach out to people who are experts in their field. Reach out to nurses, reach out to physicians, reach out to your primary care provider. They're going to have the answers that you need, or at least guide you in the direction to get the answers that you need. But
that's right.
I wouldn't use the media as my main source of information.
Yeah, Twitter's a great source for it because you can get this right from doctors and They've got a verified check mark, then they'll tell you this is where I work. You can look.
So does Robert Malone, by the way.
Yeah, I was gonna say some people are verified. I don't know.
Sorry. I should say in their bio, it has a link to their actual credited bio in like a credited field somewhere. And those are the people you listen to them directly. Don't listen to the way the media filters what they say. Just read what they say directly, because most of them are really good about taking complicated information and parsing it down into 140 characters for you to understand. And if you have questions, a lot of them reach right back. They'll answer you. Just, you're right. And that's the kind of do your own research you should be doing, not watching Rumble videos and fucking YouTube conspiracy documentaries.
YouTube.
Absolutely right. And
YouTube,
listening
no
to
good.
the Pretty Nerds podcast too.
So YouTube is no good. Is that correct? Facebook is no good. Bathroom or powder room is not a laboratory. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not the pro. They are.
I would say that, there's a lot of really great information on the internet. We have to be able to use the sources that are available to us, and again, reaching out to people where they are. So, for example, an 8-year-old's not going to get their information necessarily from Facebook or whatnot. We have to make sure that we're giving people the tools that they need to find the right information. And then again, just reaching out to people to say, hey, like, I read this. What do you think about that? And having those types of conversations. But yeah, there is some sketchy stuff out there for sure.
Yeah, no shit. I love the facts that come to people in memes. Those are my favorites. Sorry, Locke, go ahead.
I just want to pass it because I have a feeling we're probably going to be signing off with you very shortly, but I wanted to make sure that I got this piece of information to you. It's sort of advice for you too, and it's kind of a sports related analogy. In hockey, if you get hit, like taken out in the corner, tripped, popped or whatever, you take a number and you just sort of wait until an opportunity to presents itself where you can get some payback. If you guys are ever in a situation where, somebody yells at you on the street, just take a number, take a mental picture of that person. I'm sure there is a lot of hell you can put them through if they ever end up in the hospital.
Yeah, like a really straight. What do they call the when you put the tube in the pee hole? What's that called again? Catheter. Like a very uncomfortable cathetering.
Take a number.
Or like
no lube.
or a bedpan that accidentally falls on the stuff like that. I agree with Locke. Schadenfreude is an incredible
saline instead of morphine. I mean,
oops,
come on.
Don't warm the jelly before the ultrasound.
Sarah.
Yeah, like just take your time getting down to them when they're pressing the button, like bing, 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 bing. Yeah, I'll be right there, and then watch another episode of Seinfeld, that kind of stuff. Listen, I want to thank you both. I know it's a stretch to get you guys on. I know you're both very busy. I know you're family people, but I also want to thank you for the effort that you've made in putting your stuff out there, being vulnerable to go ahead and do something that. Not a lot of people have the energy at the end of the week to do, which is help others through the profession that you both chose and that you both are heroes for. And I just want to thank you on behalf of everybody that has experienced the mercy of angels like you. And I want to thank you very much and tell you to keep going and put a little Vicks Vapor Rub underneath your nose.
Thank you guys for having us, and thank you for letting us share our stories and a little bit of our knowledge and how nurses are actually dealing with this during the pandemic. So thank you for having us.
Awesome.
And come for a barbecue anytime.
Yes.
At Gritty Nurse on Twitter. GrittyNurse.com is where you can find these lovely ladies, and they have got like the latest one on
neurodiversity. Yeah.
Neurodivergence. I learned about neurodivergence today in the healthcare community, and it's fascinating because, like I said to these girls before we got on, I'm like, I just assumed you guys were perfect and no one ever had any mental issues and nobody ever had, but these are human beings, and these ladies are warriors for your health. So make sure that you appreciate a nurse today. Thank you, ladies. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. The Gritty Nurses, Amy and Sarah, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. What a lovely couple of ladies.
No kidding.
At Gritty Nurse on Twitter.
At Gritty Nurse on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yep.
I am
Thankless
following
job,
these young
Holy
ladies.
shit.
Bonzi, I thought you were great in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I really was blown away by that point you made.
He was just, I am not saying a word. They're going to attack me.
I tried a couple times, and it's hard to. I mean, I got 3 pretty chatty fellas here, and it's not always easy. So I just sit back, let you guys do your thing, and listen. You don't bring me on here to be Mr. Smart Guy and pretend to be all smart, and
that's not
what
true.
I'm here for.
Okay, Mr. Self-Aware.
Hey, you know what? The reason why and I'll tell you honestly why we brought you on is because I had a great mind to have these nurses on. What are you doing? What do you got,
I am showing you my phone to remind you that I'm reading something on the show today. Keep going. This is just a quick reminder.
You can read it right after this, but I was dying to show him this picture of your nuts and with the Howie Meeker telestrator, 1 ball, 2 ball, 3 balls. And right before we went on, I said, hey, Bonzi's he's got growth. And they're like, don't show us any pictures because we can't talk about that. And I'm like, well, I guess Bonzi's going to not say anything for 55 minutes.
Bonzi doesn't get a nurse's opinion.
I failed at one point. I was like, I got shit to do.
This is and then Bonzi's going to go on his show tonight and say this is how the healthcare system failed him. That's what's going to happen.
I will listen to that ADHD podcast they just put out on the neuro whatever.
Try to get through the whole thing.
Neurodivergence. Yeah, neurodivergence it's called. Yeah. I started thinking, I was listening to the podcast today with the girls, and I'm like, maybe I got it. Maybe I got ADHD because sometimes I find myself standing in the kitchen going, why do I have a jar of pickles in my hand?
That's the pot smoking. That's all
I
that
don't
is.
think it is. I don't do that until I go to bed. I'm a go to bed guy. So right before I go to bed, I do it. You had an email or text you wanted to read. Now, before Lachlan reads this text, I don't often accidentally text the wrong person, but I texted Lachlan when I was texting a friend of mine who happens to be female about going to an art gallery thing last night, which we did go to.
Don't ruin it for me. You're giving away all the juicy parts.
Go ahead.
Oh God.
Okay, so I got this.
Hang on. Before you go on, remember you have identified this person. That's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
okay.
Fine. Yeah,
I thought I was supposed to use a fake name.
Yeah, use a fake name just in case. But
okay,
go ahead.
All right. Okay. So, I got this text at 6:00 in the morning. So, and it shows up, and it's from Dean, and I'm like, I'm on the air, and I get a text. So I look at it, and I'm very confused.
Yeah.
And it says, want to come to my friend's art gallery closing landscape show? It's tonight. She told me last night, little gallery in Markham, but really cool art show. She'll have meat trays too. I like the fact that you brought up meat trays. There's some emojis in here that I don't understand, but whatever. So I sat and I looked at that and I was like, I've really got to make sure that I respond appropriately to this.
Yeah.
So I was like, not sure I'll make it in time, honey. Because I'm in Alberta. And this is the next step in my relationship with Dean, getting us to an art gallery
with meat trays.
So
he had a nice charcuterie board, yeah.
That he screwed up and then explained that he was texting a friend who I asked what fake name he wanted me to use, and he said go with Brandy. I gave him 3 suggestions: Amber, Brandy, and Crystal. Yeah. And I said, by the way, it's Brandy with an I.
Yeah.
And her middle name is Lynn.
Yeah. You know what? And it's funny because when he texted me back, I get this notice like, I don't think I'm going to make it in time. And if you've ever accidentally texted someone, in an innocuous text, like it wasn't like, hey, want to see my wiener? Like it wasn't like, it wasn't a Bonzi text. Like, hey, everybody. Who wants to see my 3 nuts? Like it wasn't one of those.
That's not how
but it was. But it was like, hey, want to go to this art gallery thing? Because I just got a text. Like it was first thing in the morning, and so I texted Lachlan. But the fucking panic when he texted me back, and I'm like, why is Lachlan saying he's not going to make it in time? And then I open it up, and it's like, hey, you want to go to an art gallery? I'm like, oh no. That could have been so much worse if I had bad intentions.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that? because I've like texted my dad once. I remember texting my dad, and I meant to text this guy that I was having a text fight with, but my dad started texting me in the middle of me doing a text fight. This is years ago, and I texted back some of the worst shit I've ever texted anybody to my very religious dad.
Oh my God.
And it was like, and it was, I'm paraphrasing, but how about you go fuck yourself, you dumb scab? Why don't you S a D down at the bus station, you this and you that, and I know all about you being a piece of shit and all these hookers. Like it was this crazy long, like, drunk text that I was like fucking out of control. So I get this text back. My dad's like, "Is this for me?"
At least he knew. Occasionally, we'll get drunk texts from Jimmy.
Yeah,
because he gets, I don't know, there's a point in Jimmy's binge drinking on the weekends where he gets emotional and sentimental. And so we'll get, occasionally Grant and I'll get, I love you guys. And then we just fucking turn on him. And then, of course, I will bring it up on the show on Monday. So it's always a mistake on his part to do anything like that.
See, go ahead, Bonzi.
Go ahead, Bonzi, because he hasn't said anything for an hour.
I was going to say, sorry.
I was when I was going through my divorce in the very early stages where, maybe there was a chance. I was at my son's hockey game, texting back and forth with her about the kids, and then I was texting a buddy, and he'd ask me a question, and I put back, "Well, it doesn't help. The fucking bitch has quit smoke too, so she's a million times fucking more raging bitch right now." I sent it to her instead of my buddy.
Of course,
that didn't go over so well.
See, mine has always been the opposite. I've never done it. Like, I've never sent it out, but I've always had it sent to me. And same thing. My ex. What's that?
I don't believe you at all. I guaranteed you've sent an errant text. Everyone has.
Well, maybe, but it's been so it was so innocuous that it's not. memorable.
Like mine. Like, hey, want to go to an art gallery, Lachlan, and then have sex later?
Yeah, not meat trays. Not about the meat trays.
Want to have a meat tray with me, Lachlan?
The funny thing was the funny thing about that text is there was this tone to it that Dean sent, right? That there's a tone to
playful.
There's a tone to our texting back and forth.
Yeah.
And this was not that. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I knew right away you weren't inviting me to.
No, I was inviting a female friend, just a female friend. I don't have, and it's funny because we went to this thing last night and they're like, "Oh, how long have you guys been together?" I'm like, "The fuck are you talking about? We're not together."
No.
And then I looked at the person that I was with and I was like, "It's okay that I said that, right?" And to her credit, she's like, "Oh, fuck yeah."
Well, Brandy, I mean, she lets stuff roll.
Yeah, she's great.
Brandy's a cool chick. Yeah.
It was one point where Lachlan's like, "What name do you want me to give this person?" I'm like, "Brian."
Nope, you're getting
Brian?
Brandy with an I.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a dangerous game you play with the text, right? Like the ones that I don't understand are the ones where someone like tweets out a picture of their wiener, like Draymond Green did a few years ago. And there's only one way to deal with that. It's to own it, right? Which he did. And when Lachlan texted me, I'm like, I got to pull the Draymond Green. I didn't send my wiener picture, thank God. I didn't send a picture of my junk. Hey, Lach, you want a little bit of this later? Have a look at this heap. What do you think?
Yeah.
But it was like there's only one way to deal with it, and that's how I dealt with it. And it's an actual, I think it's a real thing. I think it's something that people should do. And that stuff has to get dealt with honesty. Like anytime you accidentally do something wrong. One of the things that I've been following over the past couple of days, which has been fucking remarkable, is this Dave Portnoy story. Is anybody following this?
God.
I need you guys to catch me up on this.
It's all over the board.
I can't, like, it is so fucking bizarre. Well, it's not bizarre. It's stupid. Like,
it's almost not surprising.
Well, right? Like, Bonzi, like, let's break this down. Because the one thing I don't want to do is fucking virtue signal like everybody else does, right? Where you're like, oh, yeah, this guy's a douchebag, and he probably did it. And because when you hear stories about different people, you always say the same thing where you go, well, let's look at the guy's history. Let's see what the person's all about. And if you look at Dave
I
Portnoy's
don't.
history,
I look at a picture and judge immediately.
oh boy. Same thing with
What do you
Erica.
think when you look at a picture of Portnoy then, Locke? What do you think?
Well, I see. I don't know if I didn't know that he was that far up in the Barstool Profit or the Barstool Sports stuff, because this guy to me is the guy that goes into a pizza place.
And
that's
tries
all I
pizzas.
ever see is just him trying pizzas. How does he own a multi-million-dollar company?
Well,
so you look at this picture and what do you think?
Yeah.
He looks greasy, but listen.
Yeah.
When I started this blog, someone introduced me to what they were doing, and I thought, wow, that's fucking brilliant. But they had this edge to them that I'm like, I can't do what they're doing. Like, it's impossible to fucking talk about women like that. It's going to get you in trouble. It's going to be impossible. So there's a history there. Like, he's been taken to the mat for using the N-word on television. He's been taken to the mat for basically calling Sam Ponder a slut. And he's, but this is it. I mean, this is a big one.
Yeah.
Business Insider did a hit piece, and I believe it was a hit piece on Dave Portnoy. The title was "Young Women Say They Met Barstool Sports Founder Dave Portnoy." He's the founder, so that's the explanation there, Locke. For sex, and it turned violent and humiliating. Went through the story, and Dave actually said something about this on Twitter, on his Twitter feed, and I'm not going to play it because it's rambling, and it's like basically a guy going, I'm scared to fucking death. And this guy hasn't been scared yet. So you know that there's something there. But
how many women? Do we have a number?
Two, but
right
there
now?
are several, two on the record, anonymously on the record, but there are several more that are coming out and saying the same thing. But effectively, the story is that this Dave Portnoy dude would connect with chicks in DMs like everybody does. He would invite them to his place. Both of the complainants who were interviewed said, yeah, it happened in Nantucket at his summer home, and he explained the whole thing yesterday. But effectively, the women are saying the sex, which was consensual, was demeaning, and there were certain points in the sexual intercourse with Dave Portnoy where they felt demeaned, felt scared, tried to get him to stop. He wouldn't. He would tell him to come back. Now, here's the thing. I have seen one of these videos before, because there was a video that was put out that Barstool and Dave quickly went out and sewered whoever had it. But I have seen it, and I know people have it. And in the video, what I saw, which was just what I saw, I do not have a copy of it now, but the video that I saw was rough, very fucking rough sex. A lot of spitting, some slapping. There was a ball gag involved, a push at the end of it. But you can't say if it's consensual or not because we don't know that, right? And so I'm not going to go that far. And it's important to say, listen, if he did what is being alleged, and if he is a bad person, then he needs to pay the price for that. If these women are taking him to the mat and using him to get something out of this, publicity, money, they need to be taken to the mat.
That is a possibility.
Absolutely.
Not condoning what he did. But it does.
We don't know.
It does happen.
We don't know. And the idea that you just blindly believe everybody all the time when they say this person did this is ridiculous to me. Sorry,
the unfortunate part is you have people that and I. This one shocks me. We'll talk about Bill Cosby on the air when he's in the news, not because it's a regular conversation, but he's in the news. He got out of prison. La 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 la. And there will be people that will text and defend him. And I'm like, how does that happen?
Especially now.
How there are some men out there that are so angry at women that they just think that there is this huge conspiracy behind the scenes to take down every man. And I mean, I don't think it's an accident. You know, how do you, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you justify that in your own mind, how you rationalize that Bill Cosby could even potentially or even possibly be innocent. Yet that dick's wandering around in Philadelphia right now out of jail. It's like, that's the fucking world we live in, man. It's crazy. Yeah. It is crazy.
But let me just put this to you guys, because I wrote a post on this today, and it was for a smart guy. David Portnoy's a fucking idiot. You have, I mean, his company is owned by a company called Penn Gaming. It originally was bought by a guy named Pete Chernin, and they sold it to Penn Gaming. Dave Portnoy has minted about $250 million from this business, which he spent years creating. It's a $2.4 billion company right now. They have their own fucking sports book. They're the fastest growing media entity in the country. In this country, Canada, and they're not in Canada. They're the fastest growing digital operation in the United States. They are.
They're huge. They're massive.
They're massive.
And this could take him down. This could take him down because he is the brand. Now, let's go back a little bit. If I had $250 million in the bank in a massive influential platform, I don't, and I don't. But if I had $250 million, do you think that I would take a second when a girl DMs me and says, I'd like to come over and S your D? Do you think that I would send back a note to that person? You guys know me. Do you think I would send a note to that person and go,
No.
You know what? Come on over. As
No,
a 21-year-old, you don't want anything from me at all, and you'll never show anybody these texts.
No,
and you'll never talk to a reporter. Come on over. Like,
and
the idea that rich influence, and it gets guys every fucking time, every time. Right, Bonzi? The idea that you're above anybody saying, hey, questionable, but it's like grade 6 shit, like leaving a trail of digital breadcrumbs back to you, and you have everything to lose. And the dude, to his credit, was like, I am fucking scared.
Yeah, he put out a video yesterday on YouTube too, and it's 8 minutes long, and he's just talking into the camera. He admits that he did have sex with these girls. It was consensual, like you said, but he did admit, I'm scared because this is out now. But he talks about how he's being sewered. That this is like they've been after him for a long time, and they kind of just found this angle and just been rolling with it, and if finally they've got what they want out of him. So yeah, he's
the other thing.
But if he did, hold it. If he did it, if this is true, first of all, he's a target because he's a target because he makes himself a fucking target because he targets other people. So of course he's going to be a fucking target. Of course, you got 250 million and you keep telling people they're fucking idiots and that's your job. And your goal, like all he does is sewer online publications all day long. So of course those publications are going to go after him. And when that porn that leaked that he made that I'm referring to came out, that was 8 months ago. That's when this fucking investigation into these stories started. So, and it's the same boilerplate shit for every fucking rich guy that gets caught. They're coming for me.
I think you were right, though. I think you were right when we were having this conversation in the DMs. I think it was yesterday. And we're like, do we want to talk about this yet? And this is where it comes where we don't know anything. We know nothing. The only thing we know is he's in shit. We know that there's an accusation that's been brought to us by Business Insider. And
but Dean's right.
A bunch of the stock got dumped the day before the story broke, which was really odd. But
they're in trouble there too.
Yeah, they're in a lot of trouble there. So
yeah,
I'm going to reserve judgment. I'm going to reserve judgment on the entire thing either way until we actually see. I hope if it's true, a police investigation follows immediately. And if it's not true, I hope that somebody gets taken down with libel and slander lawsuits until.
Here's the thing. I talked to a lovely lady today. Her name is Amy Dash. She was a news reporter down in New York, and she's got a website called League of Justice. Very fortunate that we're going to be working together. And I was chatting with her about a couple of things. I'm like, what do you make of the Portnoy thing? And she's like, and she's like, it's a tale as old as time, and she's got such a great perspective. She's like, you never know until you know the story, right? Like people use these things to pontificate. And listen, I'm not gonna take anybody. There's no side to take in this conversation, right? There's no I'm not taking a dude's side because I'm a dude. I'm taking due process's side because, but I'm also saying let's also look at the history. And let's try and figure this out because I also talked to a woman today, and this is a true story, talked to a female today who said a friend of hers has had sex with Dave Portnoy, and he was very nice. Like, that was very deferential, very nice. It was a good experience, she said. He wasn't mean. He didn't do anything gross. So, like, that's why. And as I'm talking to this person today, getting information for this post that we put out, I was thinking to myself, it's really important to impress this upon people. Is like, if you're going to be pissed at him, be pissed at him for being a fucking moron and conducting that kind of business on social media.
That's just it. Come on. Yeah. What are you doing? I mean, I think anybody should be careful about any contact that they have with anybody nowadays, whether it's on Twitter or text or anything. I think you got to be very careful.
So is this video, Dean, going to tour him ultimately, or what do you think? Because you've seen it, and then you've seen that side, and then you've heard, well, he's a nice guy, and
it's going to resurface. The one Dean's talking about will resurface because there's no way it won't.
Yeah, but I was talking to the guy that has it today, and I'm like, he goes, "You want me to send you a still of it?" And I'm like, "No, no, I don't."
Yeah, the thing is too, right? Listen, people have kinks, and people like.
Yeah, but do you remember the Gameshi thought? Do you remember when we first heard about Gameshi? It was the same kind of like. It was very similar. Like and listen, I'm not saying that he's guilty.
I knew people that came out that had interactions with him, and and it wasn't like they were verifying what he was, but they were. There was support. There was more support for the claims than not. Yeah. From what I heard, we're in the media. And so a friend of a friend and worked, and then I was in Toronto, and then like, I mean, it word gets around. And this is what'll happen if this is true for this Barstool Sports guy. If it is true, the word is out there now. If there are more women out there, they will come forward. And the next conversation we have in 2 weeks is, you think 40 women are making this up? Right? You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just saying that's how these things evolve if he is guilty. So, I mean, yes, I understand everyone is trying to be safe because there could be a case where these women are trying to take him for a little bit of cash because he's worth $250 million. But what else is it? Is it hard to believe that he likes that kind of thing or has a proclivity for rough sex? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is he like? Is he the CEO of the company now?
No. A lady named Erica is the CEO, and she just got busted for having an affair with her squash coach.
That's right. Okay, so that's the big difference with the Gomeshi and the Portnoy situation. We'll call it for now. Is the fact that he's tied to a brand so tightly.
He is the brand, dude. If this takes him down, and I said this in the podcast, they'll sue her. That brand will sue him before he's already cooked. He's already done. Dude, that brand cannot, like, you think it's sustainable without him? I don't know if you follow these guys. I used to, and I don't anymore, because about a year and a half ago, I'm like, listen, I can't have anything outside of what we're trying to do motivate me to do anything other than we should be doing, and that's the truth. I still see all the things he does, and he is it. Like, I mean, anytime there's a big movie, he's there. Any show, he's there. And if he doesn't exist, that brand might not exist. And
if you tell somebody that doesn't follow it as like that, well, like you and I, like I watched the occasional video. I'm not a diehard Barstool Sports guy, but as soon as you mentioned his name and Barstool's, I pictured him walking out of a pizza place. He's the brand. Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, so everybody pictures him when they picture Barstool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it's true, he's fucked. Like, I think the brand is fucked. It's just a fucking crazy situation. Bonzi, have you been listening to us talk about this?
Yeah.
As the traveling wiener of the bunch, I would highly encourage you not to conduct your business online. If you know what I'm saying.
I think Bonzi has admitted a couple of times in the last few weeks about the steps he's taken to change the way he interacts with the opposite sex online, right? Like 100%. You did, because we talked about D-pics, right?
Yep.
And you were like,
Yep.
listen, I don't send them anymore. I used to. Here's the thing, right?
Just
Like,
to us. Now he
if
just sends
you-
it to
Yeah,
us.
those are B
those
picks,
that was
not D
different.
picks.
Yeah.
That was clinical.
I
We're
was
trying
under
to help
strict
you.
orders. No D in the pick.
No,
Yeah,
We just wanted the B, and there it is.
He's multiple. Yeah.
But I think Bonzi is definitely. You know what, man? He's out. He's in the game, and trying to woo the ladies into the bus in the campground.
Yeah, but
And
has
it's not
has
an
this
easy task.
has this been like has the time that we've been working together for about a year? And you said something in the previous podcast. You're like, yeah, I don't do any of that anymore. Like, I don't say. Has this kind of changed your mind a little bit about carrying on like that a little bit, Bonzi? When you see stuff like this, you're like, fuck, I got to be careful.
Well, yeah, and I've mentioned it before that and I've been ever since I got on the show, and I kind of, it's out there, and you've given me a great platform, and yeah, it has 100% changed my mindset. There was an opportunity the past few months or so where I could have sent some pictures, but my smart brain took over and said, that's not a good idea anymore, just because of where I'm at. Before I was never on a big platform like this, and it was just me and my stupid show on Facebook, and it wasn't really a big deal. And even before that, it was really nobody. I was just living in Nicaragua, owned a bar, just doing my thing. That's when I kind of probably sent a lot, because of talking to ladies back in Canada, and it did happen, but it was consensual. They were asked for, it was reciprocated, but now that's not happening whatsoever. And listen, the ultimate goal is, I don't think it's a secret, I've got my demo tapes out there now. I'm trying to get into Hollywood as a voice actor. And it's crossed my mind, and even some of the crazy things I've said on the show. Can it come back to haunt me potentially because of my open honesty and talking about dick pics out there? I don't know, maybe not, but we'll see.
Well, we're always here. We're always here to help. Sorry, go ahead.
Go on, Ryan. Go.
I was just going to say, we're always here to help you, Bonzi. And that being said, any ladies out there that happen to receive a dick pic from Bonzi, send it to us immediately, so he can be shamed for it.
We'll cross-reference it with this picture of his balls, and we'll let you know. Like, that'll be the research that we do. We'll be like, hey, this looks like Bonzi. Let's have a look at the balls.
Bonzi won't be sending out any D pics.
So that'll be that's now your protection. That's the protection.
Here's the thing about sexual proclivities, kinks, whatever the hell you want to call them. If you're smart about it, you should be able to find somebody else that's into it. And I'm not condoning what the rumors are about the Barstool guy. I'm saying if you're into sucking toes, there's there's probably a toe sucking group out there, right? Like, I mean, I don't want to chew on my wife's foot, and God help her if she ever. My foot went in her mouth.
We've seen your toes. Good Lord.
Oh, they're not good, man. They're awful. But there's someone out there with a similar, thing. And right. We just got Jimmy signed up for a nerd dating site, right? Where, he's going to have other ladies that like,
nerdy shit,
nerdy stuff. And maybe
sign up for
dress
that.
up.
Yeah. No, you got to you're married, Ryan, and your wife watches this program. She's watching right now, so don't go down that road. You don't want to go down that road.
What?
That road of the nerd website. Oh, I thought you were like
no. I asked when Jimmy signed up for it. When did Jimmy? Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
Well, I hope he meets somebody. That's actually really cool.
We have actually done a lot of.
I hope he meets someone that's like 6'4".
Yeah,
he likes
like
the big
Amazonian.
He likes the big girls. Jimmy likes the big girls.
Like tall or wide? Does he like the taller?
I don't know if there's a distinction there. He likes the bigger girls.
Yeah, big girls. Like, that's like,
and the big girls need love too. And
everybody does.
Jimmy would be a very lovable man.
Little guy. He would be.
He can move around in there.
It's room. He's got a lot of room.
A plumber, right?
He brings up his fetish, like little things, because he's got quite a few little kinks.
Yeah, he likes married chicks, or he likes pregnant chicks too, right? Like it's.
We weren't supposed to mention it, but that's okay.
You've mentioned it 100 times on this show.
You mentioned it.
Yeah,
I've never said it.
Chicks. Oh, okay. Well, yeah,
okay.
That's his deal.
Yeah,
he's got a
there's
also
a couple of other things that he brings up, like he likes to be spanked and tied up, and yeah, Jimmy is a kinky little prick.
Jesus.
Yeah,
And you see, here's the thing: you can have a completely consensual relationship with somebody.
absolutely.
And have
That's what you're saying.
pictures of that, and have that, and then break up with that person, and have that person use those pictures to say he tied me up, and I didn't want it to be tied up. And if you
That
don't have
can
like
happen.
exactly, if you don't have like a way of absolutely proving it, which is what makes what Portnoy did so fucking crazy to me.
Mhm.
Like he's like,
Why
well,
do you
I got no
film it?
proof
That's
for the
why
first
it's okay
one.
to say he's a fucking idiot. That's
That's
the
why I'm
point that
calling him a
Dean's
fucking
making
idiot.
it.
Yeah.
Because he got himself into trouble, and there could have been some steps that he took. I mean, if you're worth $250 million, dude, control your bedroom shit.
Well, it makes
Right?
me wonder
Yeah.
how cheap the guy is. Like, you could just go and hire a chick and get her to sign an NDA as part of the process. And if it's consensual, it's no big deal. But he's such a cheap prick, and he's got $250 million. He's like, I'll just hook up with a chick on IG who I've
DM,
never
yeah.
met from a different town, and I'll fly her in. And it was
Because he
bizarre.
was thinking with his fucking D and not his brains.
Not his
you know?
B.
And you always said, Dean, just jerk off and it'll all be fine. Right? And he wouldn't have got into
Clear the
this trouble.
pipes.
He would have been fine. Yeah. He would have went
Yeah,
out on a
fellas.
nice date. Would have been
I
good.
think that's a great place to end it. Gentlemen, is that word of advice. If you're ever considering having a relationship with someone and you have a kink, or maybe it's someone you've contacted online and there's no trust, you don't know the person, give it a pull, cancel the visit. Because after you give it a pull, the post-masturbatory guilt will set in, and you'll be like, it's over now. I feel a lot better. No need to do that. It works every time. Do you have a big decision to make about university? Same thing. Your head's so much clearer after you give it a yank. There's my advice to you today. I think we did good.
Wow.
Perfect.
Not bad.
We're
Bonzarelli,
teaching.
thanks for being here. Yeah.
Thanks,
We're not
Bob.
only entertaining, we're teaching.
Got a podcast tonight, Bonds?
Reggie tonight, part 3, the police years. So we're starting into that now after the firefighting. And he
Isn't
he
this
shot
the
and
guy that
killed
keeps
somebody within
canceling
the
on you?
first 6 months.
I have to get
What?
high and show up.
He what? What did you say about the first 6 months?
He shot and killed somebody in his first 6 months of being a police officer. So we're going to get into that tonight. He's killed 2 people.
Yeah.
So we'll get into the first shooting tonight, and we'll go from there. He's got some
Wow.
great stories.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
I had-
Bonzi.
I had
Bonzi's got
Arby's
Reggie
for
on his
lunch.
show who used to be Bill Cosby's driver. So that'll be tonight on the network at Bonzi Live on Twitter. Or you changed it. That's great because I put in your one that you had yesterday, Bonzi 16. So you've changed it back already, even though I told you not to.
Hold
but
on.
I
No,
don't
I
give
changed
you-
it back right away after the show because
Changed it.
I made a mistake. Okay, I jumped the gun, and y'all yelled at me. Manager
Isn't Bonzi
Jason yelled
16
at me.
anymore?
It was like,
we change it
No.
again? Holy
No.
shit.
just put it back to what
It's
it was.
just changed back. It's gone
Jesus
back.
Christ,
Lachlan.
Bonzi.
It was
Well,
only
hold-
Bonzi 16 for like 10 minutes. Okay, 10 hours
Bonzi?
for 10 minutes.
Did the guy that shot a bunch of people on your podcast today actually work for Bill Cosby?
Yes, he did. a
Holy
long time.
mother of Christ, that's a tie-in.
Isn't
See
that
what
incredible?
That is?
It's all coming around.
That
You
you
can also
gets
get
the whole thing. Like,
Yeah, Tripping with Bonzi on YouTube is where you can find it tonight. So go watch it. Ryan Lindley, the host of the Sheeple Shepherd podcast. You got a podcast coming up? Talk to me.
Yeah, actually, I'll be on Bonzi's tonight at 9:15 when his guest doesn't show up. It'll be great. Other than that, we're working on the cult groupthink crazy one coming up. It should be out in the next week or so. We're going to have some really cool stuff, and there'll be a blog post on deanblundell.com to accompany it, and keep your eye open for it. We'll plug it. And
Thanks,
show
buddy.
it.
Awesome.
can I plug something really quick?
Yeah, please.
I got something really cool happening next week that I think people might be interested in attending. I know that this is a podcast that is listened to across the country. A lot of people in Ontario listen, but we do have some people in Edmonton and St. Albert. I found out about this woman whose dad is dying, and he's a vet, and he's got terminal cancer, can't leave the house right now. So they're organizing, and he is a big Remembrance Day guy. So they're actually organizing a Remembrance Day event out in front of their house for him.
Awesome. Cool.
So
yeah, we've got her on the show it's in St. Albert. If you're interested in attending, send me a note on any of my social media. I have no rules about following anybody. I'll follow everybody. So Twitter, Facebook, I'm on Instagram as well. And I'll get you the address and some of the details, but we also have her on the locker room on Monday morning. We're going to interview her about her dad and about the plans and everything like that. This thing is turning into something.
Good.
And I'm kind of excited to be a part of even just a minute part of getting the word out there about the whole thing. Yeah.
Good.
Anyway,
Well, listen, Lachlan Cross on Twitter is where you can find information. Link in bio, as they say. Good for you. I mean, supporting veterans is it. And anytime you could do something for someone else, that's the key to life. So thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate it, Lach.
And thank you for giving me an opportunity to sit in and have a few laughs every Friday.
You're welcome.
Every day.
And be silly if we didn't bring this up one more time, too.
You know what we need to do is on your merch page, you should have a Chew Toys for Dogs in the shape of your 3-ball testicles.
Oh, my God.
I just want to get a shirt made up with this on the front. That's it.
I can't wait to start my OnlyFans this weekend and really push the 3-ball fetish.
I can't wait. I can't wait to make it into a poster.
Like it.
I can't wait to make it into a poster and make it like an anti-abortion one and go down to the hospital and hang out with my friends down there.
That's right. That was one of the.
I can't believe I know someone with 3
off
balls.
Instead of sending that picture.
Awesome.
It's awesome. Bonzi, Locke, Ryan, thanks, guys. Appreciate you all.
Guys.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Love you, boys. Here, guys.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah,
Love
boys.
you too, buddy. That is my friend Greg. That is my friend Locke. And that is my friend Ryan. Thank you, friends, for watching. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, sign up for a newsletter at DeanBlundell.com. We'll just send you all this stuff, and you don't have to go looking for it. It's easy. Thanks to our friends at Easy Auto Financial. Easy Auto Financial is where you get a car and financing, and it's turnkey, super, super simple. What you need is their help because they take all the bullshit out of buying a car, including where you get your financing. It doesn't matter about your credit rating at all. Go to easyautofinancial.ca today. Thanks to our friends at Ed's Fine Imports. His Gitch is what we wear. You can wear it too. Go to edsfineimports.com, GITCH3. Gitch 3 is your promo code. Order 3, he'll send you the 4th for free. They're the only Gitch I wear, only underwear I wear. Boxer briefs, pouch at the front, no piling, resistant to it. They don't shrink. They don't lose their good, as they say. No stretch loss. And they're Canadian made. So try them out today. Go to edsfineimports.com. Gitch 3, promo code. Buy his Gitch. I do too. And domination.com. They produce content for you and with you. It's artificial intelligence computer program. You feed your entire file in. It kicks out a bunch of promos. Takes no time. It is free to try. And it has made our lives incredibly easy when it comes to producing legacy content, different formats, doesn't matter. Go to dmntn.com and check them out today. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful weekend. Try and figure it out. Don't be dicks to each other. Go get vaccinated. Bye.